We're definitely starting to see the effect of teams not playing every single weekend at all of these tournaments. Is it better for you to be playing the matches, or is it better for you to be off on the side stage, like watching your future opponent going up into like a championship game? P2 Podcast, episode 5. I can't believe we've already made it through 5 episodes. That's like more than a month. Weird. Yeah. P2 Podcast, episode 5. We're going to be talking about the Call of Duty League Atlanta tournament. There's a ridiculous amount of things to talk about. There was a lot of question marks coming into this tournament. The big question that everybody had is who's better, Faze or Chicago Huntsman? It was the title of our last podcast. Can we get F's in the chat, because that did not happen, man. The Chicago Huntsman did not come to play this weekend. It was not pretty.
No, not good at all.
Yeah. You kind of saw it way early on. Who did they play first? We'll break down the matches here in a minute. Yeah, but even against the Toronto Ultra, I mean, they did not do too well.
Yeah, they just came out not doing well.
Right. So the schedule for this podcast is we're going to be breaking down all the matches. Mork once and I again. Mork and I took a bunch of notes, mainly Mork. He's coming in clutch, writing down all the statistics that you guys want to hear about. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's first talk about the overall event. Did you have any initial thoughts of how everything went?
I mean, I thought it was really cool. The stadium definitely looked really cool when they first showed it. It was right before the first match. But the one thing I did notice, and it was Saturday, there was like no fans there all of Saturday.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that as well. I knew that Atlanta Faze were going to have a lot of events going on. I knew that there was a lot of big personalities that were going to be there. I knew they did have a bunch of like signings for everything. So I would hope that most of the people were interacting with those things, which is cool to see. I'm very excited to see what all Chicago Huntsmen have to offer at their home event in about a month and a couple weeks. So that'll be fun. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it did seem a little bit dead. Crowd energy compared to London. Again, to be expected. Yeah. But yeah, it was a little stagnant until about the end when people started really to rally behind Faze. But yeah, I thought the event overall was pretty decent. The views were okay this time around. I think they were definitely less than previous weekends overall, would you say?
Yeah, I definitely would. And I wouldn't compare London to or like the viewership from London to this, because most Call of Duty fans are going to be NA fans, not EU. So you did have a lot of people that did not travel overseas to go watch COD. You had most of them still sit at home and watch.
But I think that since there's only 2 teams that are representing in Europe, I think that does attract a wider variety of people to come to those actual tournaments. And I don't know what the ticket sales looked like for Atlanta Faze versus London, but London just looked like a bigger venue.
It did.
Faze looked like they had very little room on the floor for people, which I don't necessarily agree with, because that's how we've been used to watching Call of Duty in the past. And it's a little bit more interactive. Like, excuse me, when the camera pans over the crowd and you see like this giant sea of people that are rallying behind their teams, that's kind of a cool look for Call of Duty. Yeah. But I didn't really get that today and yesterday at Faze at Atlanta, because it was just a smaller like floor for people to sit.
Yeah, for sure. I just felt like the whole event was kind of awkward. They're definitely still trying to figure out the best way for our audience to be seeing how everything's going down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it was a little bit awkward. There were a couple weird like technical difficulties still. We could talk about that until the sun comes up, but
Yeah.
I mean, credit where credit is due. Everything still looks incredible. I love Call of Duty, the fact that they're hyping up all of these different events. We've already seen the commercial for the Battle of Los Angeles event coming up in 2 weeks. I think that's super cool that they do that. And
That commercial was so dope.
yeah, and the fact that the Call of Duty League everything was so pushed far back and like what's the word, procrastinated kind of. The fact that they were able to turn around and make a visual package and experience is really pretty cool. So
yeah, for
hats
sure.
off to the production team. I'm sure that we're going to get the technical difficulties kind of ironed out a little bit. One thing I did want to note, did you sense that whoever was running the cameras actually in game today was not the best?
I did. Like, there were a couple weird looks that we were getting as viewers.
And it was like, okay, the casters would be because I thought in the past that the casters ran it. I'm pretty sure that's how that worked. And then now it's like the casters will say, oh, look at number 7. He's going all the way around on the flank. And we'll watch his POV when they mention it. But then right as like he's supposed to get a big kill or something, they'll switch off. At one point, Merc and Maven were casting a match, and I don't remember who it was.
It was Atlanta and Florida.
But it was like, oh, if we could hop onto this POV, hop on. He literally said like, hop on this POV, and then it didn't happen. Yeah. I don't know if it's a different person every weekend. I hope it's the same person or team every weekend. That way they can kind of figure it out, because that's a big job to change cameras in game. It's hard, I know, but hopefully they get that figured out. That was one thing I did have noted for this weekend.
Yeah.
So
I think the overall timing was a lot better. Mm-hmm. Like of the whole broadcast. One thing that I noted was the amount of time they spent on the analyst desk with like Lottie, Nameless, and whoever the other guy is. I forget his name.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not have a lot of screen time, which definitely bumped up like the speed of how this will go, because they were complaining in London on how everyone was having to pull 13, 14-hour days.
Yeah.
And sure, you can say some of that was the hype battle over at London, just waiting for Mad Cat over there. But
right.
I don't know. I just felt like it was a much higher pace. We saw a lot of Call of Duty the past 2 days.
Yeah. So to kick things off, I want to talk about one more thing, and then we'll get into the actual matches. And this is something I wrote down pretty much at the beginning of the tournament. We're definitely starting to see the effect of teams not playing every single weekend at all of these tournaments. I think that's a big thing that's kind of been lingering over Call of Duty and just how the tournaments have been set up in the past, of like which is a better position to be in. Like if we're talking about Black Ops 4 or previous Call of Duties, is it better for you to be playing the matches, or is it better for you to be off on the side stage, like watching your future opponent going up into like a championship game? And I think it's a big back and forth conversation to be had, but that whole idea could be applied into how this new tournament structure works in the Call of Duty League. Because I mean, a team like Faze, they haven't played since launch weekend, and that's a long time to not be playing on LAN. And your initial thought is, oh yeah, I think the more LAN experience that you have, the better. But Atlanta Faze, I mean, if they know that they're already frying people online and they feel very confident about their gameplay going into this weekend, I would spend a ridiculous amount of time watching VODs and getting to know your opponents a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. But the weird thing that I did have to say about it, and Clayster tweeted this out yesterday. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone to read this. He said, "This will be my first real event I haven't attended since, no joke, 2011 or 2012." That's kind of hard.
They read that on the analyst desk, and it's just a weird kind of thing, and I'm curious to see which teams that's going to affect them negatively or which teams it's going to affect them positively. I think it affected Atlanta Faze positively this event.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think that some teams, that's what they need, is to sit down and watch the VODs of different people. Now that we're starting to get a better idea of what teams are on top or what teams are kind of in the middle. But then on the flip side, I do think some teams just need to iron things out on land. Like they need to play as many matches on land as possible.
For sure.
Like, for example, I don't think the Toronto Ultra need to play any more land matches. They don't play next weekend or maybe even the week after that. They do play at Dallas, but I feel like you're just beating a dead horse. Like they need to go, they need to regroup, figure out what went wrong, and then how to plan for the future. So
yeah,
at first glance, I really didn't like that all of the teams weren't going to be at every single event, but I think it keeps these events interesting to see who can regroup after a rough event or who can keep the momentum up after winning an event and then not playing for essentially a month on land.
Yeah, it'll definitely be hard and different, but I mean, you got to think about it. That's how most like professional sports work. Is some people are going to have bye weeks.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the setup's different for every sport. So some teams, like I feel like baseball, they just continue to play, and it's like,
good Lord,
it's
baseball
really hard.
happens 24/7 a day, 7 days a week.
Right, but I think that this is a cool thing to look at moving forward. And we'll see. I like this tournament structure because it gives teams the chance to prove that they're better than what people are talking or saying about them. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely a lot of upsets this weekend. I feel like some teams should be very proud of their performance. So with that said, I think we should just transition into the matches.
Right into it.
Okay, so starting it off on Saturday morning, we had the Minnesota Rocker against the Paris Legion. And just to catch you guys up, during the bye weeks or weekends that there isn't an event, Mark and I like to make predictions on what's going to happen the next week. And each time that we guess correctly, we're going to get 10 points. And then at the middle of the season and at the end of the season, we're going to be tallying up the points. And then whoever loses has to buy something to give away. So if you're not already followed our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Prairie2Gaming, or if you're not subbed to our YouTube channel, definitely go do that so you can be entered into the giveaway. We haven't announced what it's going to be yet. We're still in the works of making some things. But
we should have that announcement very soon.
Yeah, it'll definitely be very cool. So after the last event, Mark and I ended up tied 30 points each. So this week for the Rocker versus Paris, Mark said that Paris was going to win 3-1. And you specifically said that Minnesota was going to win the hard point. Brother, it was the polar opposite. Paris won the first hard point, and then Minnesota Rocker came out with 3 maps in a row to take the win. Yeah. So I said it was going to be a 3-2 Minnesota Rocker. So I win this one. This was a pretty good match.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota definitely came out wanting to prove something, which they for sure did. They had a great weekend, and in general, they looked really good against Paris, especially because Paris was riding their wave of doing really good, almost knocking out Huntsman at London. And Minnesota came up, I don't want to say out of nowhere. They still looked relatively well in the previous weeks, but I definitely think Paris overlooked Minnesota.
I think, most people overlooked Minnesota. I'm going to change cameras here so you guys can see a little bit better. Maybe now? There we go. I think everybody underestimated Minnesota. I think that since Paris came off of getting tied for third and fourth in the previous event, I think that everybody expected specifically Wuzkin to do very well, and Wuzkin did not show up to play this weekend, like at all. He
Where are you getting Luskin from?
Wuzkin, Kismet. I apologize. Kismet, yeah, because Kismet was the one that was like kind of the superstar player for
Yeah.
Legion 2 weekends ago. So
And he did not have a good weekend at all. And I feel like that's
no.
part of the reason why Paris did not do well.
Yeah, no, I hate teams that do that. Just try to rally around one player. Yeah, it was not the best match for Paris Legion. They just got absolutely destroyed. GodRx had a 30-18 on domination.
Hackney Dom.
Yeah, I mean
Like
it was.
that's so hard because he's an AR player. He from what I remember, he was the only M4 on that map, and he's dropping numbers like that. Like, it's insane.
So it was a pretty convincing win from the Rocker. I don't want to dwell too much on these preliminary matches. We want to talk a lot more about the matches later on in the day. So let's go ahead and move on. London Royal Ravens 3-1 over the Mutineers. We both said they were going to 3-0 them, so we were pretty close. And this was kind of a weird match because at the time I was like, well, yeah, London Royal Ravens is a lot better of a team than the Mutineers. But as we saw, the Mutineers made it onto the finals. Like, they definitely had a very, very good Saturday. So I wonder what their issue was, just maybe coming out slow. But yeah, the Royal Ravens absolutely mowed over them. I mean, it wasn't very close at all.
With Florida did they take that Dom?
Florida took the domination, yes.
Yes.
Petrograd.
So and that Petrograd was I feel like Florida in general had very boring St. Petrograd dominations. They would cap 2 flags and sit. Like, I understand that's a great way to win the game, but like, man, it was just boring to just sit through those.
Yeah, you wrote that down, but I kind of saw it as in like a different way where they just played super kind of annoying. They waited for Royal Ravens. They knew they were a very aggressive team. So they kind of just let the Royal Ravens do the work for them in the sense of like the submachine gun players are just running around the map and they're just getting picked off in corners and then they'll go off and get the flag. So I thought it was kind of cool how they were playing it. It was a lot slower, waiting for the Ravens to come to them. So I thought it was a pretty good match.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's a good idea, I guess, to do that, especially now since Dom rounds are back to 5 minutes. Because if you can grab 2 flags and hold them for minute and a half, 2 minutes, like, you're going to have a pretty like steep lead there.
Yeah.
And that's what Florida did. They knew that, and that's what they played around.
Yeah, that was one thing I forgot to talk about coming into this event was the rule changes. So they changed S&D from 2 minutes to plant the bomb to 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then domination is 5 minute rounds?
5 minutes instead of 6.
5 minute rounds instead of 6. I didn't see a whole lot of difference in the domination, maybe just by like score. We didn't see a whole lot of like 200-point domination games like 2 weekends ago. But I definitely felt it, and it was a huge talking point in the search and destroy, especially on like a bigger map like Gunrunner. It takes them so much time to get the bomb to the bomb site, and where we saw teams play really slow right off the bat in these rounds, they can't do that anymore. They have to push and they have to make a play.
See, I think it had the biggest impact on Arklov and
Arklov is
St.
another
Petrograd.
one. Oh yeah.
Because like, these teams are still trying to do their strats, and then they're having 10 seconds to plant the bomb. If you're defense, you do not move off the bomb site. You wait until the attacking team picks a bomb site. You could get a lucky nade, and we saw that. You could get a lucky nade at the very end of the round, kill the person that's planting bomb, and then just run.
Yeah.
So teams definitely have to start fixing their search and destroy strategy of just sitting on the attacking side.
Oh yeah, attacking side you have to play aggressive, and it takes a lot less time for you to decide like, okay, should we try and push one bomb site and then wrap around and try and hit the other one? It was very much like, okay, we're going B, and then they just kept working B. So I don't know how much I agree with the search and destroy time difference. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. It just felt very rushed, and I like kind of seeing the methodical plays. I like seeing how some of these pro players are willing to sit in the same spot and just wait for the other team to push into them. I think that's kind of interesting.
For sure.
Because I'm not that good of a Call of Duty player. I just kind of rush into everything. So,
oh my god,
it's fun to
see. Get me started.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Chicago Huntsmen over the Ultra. We both said it was going to be a 3-0. This one had my blood pumping so hard, and I was so mad after this match. There was no reason this one should have been this close, like at all. It was ridiculously close the entire time.
Lost.
I mean, yeah.
Chicago should have lost.
Kind of. I mean, look at these scores. Like this Hackney hardpoint could have gone either way. It was both very close. Toronto won the Piccadilly search and destroy, which Huntsmen were so like ridiculously good at. What was that? 2 weekends ago, or was that launch weekend that they played a lot of Piccadilly? But
I think it was both.
Yeah, we've seen them be dominant on this map, and they just were super slow, getting out sniped. It was
Looney was absolutely loony with the sniper.
Yeah,
good lord, he was shutting down Formal, and Formal had to put it away. Now you had Looney with the sniper looking over everyone, and no one counter snipe.
Right. No, I mean, I made this comment I think 2 weeks ago, where it's like the reason I love the Chicago Huntsmen and why I feel so confident in them as a team is the fact that I don't foresee a lot of them sucking and then relying on one player to clutch it up. There's a lot of teams that are like that. I think the Florida Mutineers are kind of like that, where they just kind of rely on Preston a little too hard. And I love the Huntsmen because I didn't see that after those first two events that we had. But oh my God, this weekend was the polar opposite. Like, I don't understand what happened with them. I felt like they heavily relied on like Envoy on some of these maps. On the domination on this one, Envoy went 29 and 19. I just feel like they relied too heavily. Like, oh man, I'm having a bad map. Well, he'll clutch it up for me. Like, no, you got to figure it out like quick, you know.
And they're good enough to do that. Like, Envoy shouldn't have to carry the team.
Right.
Good lord, they have so many championship players on that team, and yet they're still throwing it to someone like love Envoy to death. He's such a good player. He doesn't have a championship besides London.
And it wasn't all Envoy. Scump in the last S&D, he starts off 10-0. I mean, he was frying at the beginning of that S&D. I think a couple other players like caught up to him by the end, but I don't understand why it took them so long to figure out why they were doing poorly and stop relying on their teammates. It was ugly this weekend, and they kind of knew it. And us being former Optic fans, we know kind of how it goes. We know that their mental game is just not as great. Once they get into their own heads of like, oh no, we're choking, then they continue to choke. Like, it takes a lot for them to get kind of out of that rut. So why do we always pick the teams that it's so stressful to be their fans?
Oh my God.
We need to pick a different team that just wins all the time, and then it'll just be less stressful.
Exactly. You know? Good lord.
So all the Optic fans, former Optic fans, now Huntsman fans, are kind of in the same boat this weekend. We were very disappointed at the Huntsman's performance. It was rough. So I literally wrote down in my notes in all caps, round 11 S&D, why was that so close? I mean, it literally could have gone either way.
They should have lost. They genuinely should have lost.
Yeah. So that one was pretty rough. Let's move on to Atlanta Faze over Optic Gaming. We both said 3-0, but after a long discussion of if Optic were to take a map off of Faze, that it would kind of show that the the gods could bleed essentially, and that would give us a lot more confidence going into any other Atlanta Faze matches. Unfortunately, it didn't happen here. I did not get to see this one, but from what I hear, Optic kind of put up a decent fight. Like the score
Yes.
lines didn't show it, but go ahead.
So Azir Cave, they got stomped. Phase flex their muscle. Optic couldn't do anything about it.
Hmm.
But in Arclaw S&D, where we've seen Atlanta just completely run it up in the opening weekend, yeah, OG went 6-3, but I was not expecting them to go 6-3, and they had some other really close rounds that could have gone either way. In general, I think Optic looked competitive against Atlanta. They just looked like a team that may have choked a little bit.
Hmm.
And the Petrodome, again, that's one of Atlanta's best maps, but still, Optic showed that there's still a competitive team in that or in this league. Like you said, the scoreline doesn't show it, but watching the stream, like it was crazy, thinking that it was going to be such a quick game, such an easy game, but Optic kind of held their composure in some aspects and definitely gave Atlanta a little bit of run for their money.
Right. Yeah, I I made a comment a while ago about the Seattle Surge, thinking that I do see them kind of flipping a switch later on in the season and then them being a ridiculously good team.
Mm-hmm.
I think the longer that they wait to do that, it's going to be an issue. But I could kind of see the same for Optic. I mean, I compared them to 100 Thieves last year where they absolutely sucked. And then they finally figured it out. How many is there? Two former 100 Thieves players on there, Slasher and Kenny,
Mm-hmm.
who are on Optic, and feel like they could flip a switch just as easily and then figure it out and start slaying.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. They only need one or two. Like, you need TJ to do what TJ does. You need
Mhm.
Dashy to do what Dashy does. Same goes for Kenny and Slasher.
Mhm.
JCap, he needs to be the in-game leader. He's past his slaying days. He's not going to drop 40 and 3 on people.
Mhm.
He needs to be the in-game leader and kind of keep the chains on the younger guys, but know when to let them loose.
Mhm. No, I think that really it could probably be within one weekend. It was one weekend where I thought that Florida Mutineers were a pretty low team in the standings, and then now they're in the semifinals. I feel like Optic needs to do that, kind of just really show up for one tournament.
Yeah.
If they can beat a big team and show that, hey, we've arrived to the party now. Like, stop talking bad about us.
Yeah.
We're here to play. So, it sucks to see players that are so good just get absolutely stomped like this, and then they were out after their next match as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get to that.
So, all right, Atlantic Phase easy 3-0 over Optic. So that leaves me with 30 points from this, and 40 points. You with 30 points from those initial matches,
Okay.
because you called Paris over this.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Minnesota Rocker, Chicago Huntsman. This is another weird map. This one kind of reminds me of like the Royal Ravens, where in the moment when you're watching it, it's like, oh, of course Chicago beat them 3-1, but Minnesota ended up turning it around in a big way today on Sunday. So I don't remember which map they took off of this. Oh, they took the initial hard point on. That's interesting.
Yeah. They took the St. Petro hard point. And like you said, one thing you notice Chicago doing is rallying behind Envoy. And
Hmm.
yeah, we don't like that, but they definitely did. Envoy went 14 and 23.
Right.
And that's just not like him. And like you said, they're going to be bouncing off how he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just reflected in the whole hard point. But in the next game, you had Arcides, or in the Gunrunner S&D, you had Arcides go 13 or 14 and 4. So they're like, hey, screw Envoy, let's backpack behind Arcides. And that's, I feel like, what led them to take the next 3 maps.
I don't feel like that was the mentality 2 weeks ago and on launch weekend. It was just like they were all getting hyped that they were all doing good. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's easy to do. Like if you and I are playing online and we're both smoking and winning our individual 1v1s, like we're going to get hyped up about it. But I feel like that's just kind of the mindset that they need going in. Like they are the best,
Yeah.
or well, they were the best team in the league. And so why not have that mentality going into this match, even if it starts off rough, even if
Yeah.
Rocker take this match, like why not say, hey, we're still the best, like let's just all clutch up, all win our gunfights, and we'll be good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of what they did.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about the event overall. It's really hard not to just to do
Yeah, for
individual
sure. It's
matches,
hard to
but
look back after
right.
today.
Well, it's so weird.
Going
I
back
mean,
to
it's just
Saturday.
fascinating to me that we had this kind of preconceived notion about how these teams were going to line up. Like the Rocker and the Mutineers were kind of going to be in the lower end. We both kind of expected Ultra and Optic to be at the bottom. But
Well,
yeah,
see, and
today was a crazy day for Call of Duty. It just was a lot
that's
of
what Simp brought up. He said Chicago probably was just worrying about Atlanta, watching their VODs, practicing how they would play against them, not caring about Rocker or the Ultra, and that's why Rocker and Ultra came back and or went in and kind of gave Chicago a gut check.
right.
Also, Rocker and Ultra have a lot to study about Chicago. You don't have a lot to study about the Rocker
Yeah, that's a good point.
or Toronto.
Yeah, we've mentioned that before, where it's like Ultra or Huntsman's one of the only people that actually streamed their scrims, so there's
Mm-hmm.
plenty of information to go off of there. But yeah, let's keep it moving here. Paris Legion versus Toronto Ultra. I did not get to watch this game. Do you have any comments on it? Seems pretty
Not
straightforward.
really.
I kind of expected Legion.
Toronto, yeah. Toronto took the first hard point. Um, Not much to say there. It did kind of surprise me that the fashion they took it in.
Mm-hmm.
In the Gunrunner S&D, Toronto was actually up 5-3 and just absolutely choked.
Wow.
Shocks ended up going 14-7. Dens ended up going 12-7. Like, there was one play where Dens lined up, or it was Dens and I want to say Shocks in a 2v3.
No way.
And they had to defuse the bomb. And Dens lines up 2 of them, and Shocks wins his gunfight, and is like, I feel like that just destroyed Toronto's mentality after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to do in S&D, especially if you're up, what'd you say, 5-3?
Yep, 5-3.
So if Paris wins 1, if I'm on the Ultra, I'm like, okay, we need to win this next match or it's going to be a 5-5. And then if Paris wins that and it is around 11, at that point, Ultra's like, dear God, please let us win this. Like,
And then if they won that S&D, they would have been up 2-0.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been such a confidence booster. They needed that S&D, especially since they were up 5-3.
Right. And it looks like Paris just kind of rode the hype wave out for that one. You've got some pretty crazy stats. You said Dens goes 34-21 on a zero hard point. Yeah, that's kind of crazy, man. So
yeah, for sure. I just feel like Toronto definitely needs, like, they're good. They're a good team. I'm definitely on their hype train right now.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to finish out their matches.
Yeah.
Like, they have these short bursts of energy and doing well, and then one bad thing happens and they shut down.
Yeah. I think they're another team that rallies very much behind maybe like methods or a couple other people on their team.
Vance.
Vance, yeah. So maybe they'll figure it out. I don't know. We'll keep you up to date. Toronto Ultra don't play until Dallas, so hopefully they use their time wisely. And then still on Saturday, Royal Ravens against FaZe. This was another big match. We didn't know exactly who was going to come out on top. I feel like Royal Ravens could have given them a really decent run for their money, and I think they did. It was again another match where Atlanta came off a 3-0 of Optic. They were feeling pretty good. You know, it kind of reassuring the fact in their mind that, okay, we're not just an online team. We can show up in LAN too and absolutely smoke our first match. So hopping into the London game. Let's see, what kind of stats do you have? I remember this. Go ahead.
So right off the rip, I think Atlanta just came off a little slow, but London was definitely hanging with them at first in the Hackney hardpoint. But I feel like a couple plays happened and London kind of got knocked back on their heels. And then later on in the game, FaZe just kept pushing it and ended up taking the first hard point. Luskin went 30-17 for the loss on that Hackney hard.
Jeez, that's just rough.
Yeah.
And I knew that the Ravens were going to kind of fight fire with fire against the FaZe because FaZe just plays so aggressively. Like the Tiny Terrors just play so aggressive. They have no problem getting right up into your face and trying these gunfights. So I kind of saw Ravens try a lot of that as well. Like, okay, we're going to try and get up in your face, and it's just going to be a battle to see who can get who on their heels and kind of catch them off guard.
For sure.
Hopefully.
And that's exactly what it was. Another thing that I had was London taking another 3 rounds off Atlanta in their search and destroy. Like I said, we saw Atlanta go 6-0, 6-1, whatever it was on Arklov in the opening weekend, but now teams are starting to take rounds off of them. So I definitely think FaZe is beatable. They're not living up to the expectation that they were hyping up to be. Like they're definitely the best team in the game right now, but there's not that big of a skill gap between first and second as we thought there was.
I think that's you hit the hammer on the head. No, the nail on the head.
Nail on the head?
You hit the hammer with the nail solidly. No, but for real, it's like I don't think there's a big skill gap between first and second. I mean, it's just I think Atlanta was firing on all cylinders today, and I don't think other teams were. I definitely think they can be beaten, and I'm sure that teams will go back after this weekend, take the time needed to be like, okay, what went wrong? Like, how did they adapt to us? How did they adapt to our play style? And how can we counter adapt to their play style? I think that the next time we see, specifically this matchup, I think the Ravens, if they want to prove the point of them being the top 3 team, they needed to come out and beat FaZe. I mean, then we would be talking about Ravens as one of the best teams in the game. And I think that's ultimately their end goal. One
thing that, again, led me to the conclusion that there's not that big of a skill gap between FaZe and everyone else is, FaZe won both hard points. And the second hard point on Gunrunner, Celium went 40-25.
Jeez.
But Celium was the only positive player on FaZe in both hard points.
He's the only positive in both hard points?
He was the only positive player in both hard points. So, you got to think.
And they still won.
Yeah, they won off of him.
That's insane to me. I mean, I wonder if it's just because, it's one of those things where Celium was literally just killing everybody before their teammates could get to it, or I don't know. Because one thing I do want to note about FaZe is Major Maniac very much underperformed to my expectations. I really
he was hit or miss. He needs to stay consistent.
I really liked him last year. I thought he was a good player, but
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I feel like if we were to rank the skills of each of the players on Atlanta Faze, I feel like it would be a bigger gap to him at the bottom. He very underperformed. Granted, he didn't really need to put up gigantic numbers because all of like Priesta, Abizi, and Simp were killing anything that moved.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there was a couple clutch moments where it was just like a 1v1 and he lost the majority of them, I felt like.
Yeah. He definitely, like, we know he can put up the numbers, and he
Mhm.
did in some maps, but almost exactly like Pristini, which we'll get into, he just needs to be more consistent.
Right.
If they're going to be a dominant team, you need everyone to be putting up insane numbers.
And he's their main AR, correct?
Yes.
So if he starts putting up consistent numbers, then you literally have all your bases covered.
Yeah.
You've got the subs that are in your face. You've got Priesta who kind of plays as like that flex player, but then he kind of fills the gap in that mid range. And then if you have Major
Mhm.
Maniac beaming anybody else in the back, like
You
that's
got it all covered.
that's a perfect team. Yeah, you can't do anything there. So
And especially with the tiny terrors, bro.
yeah,
Simp and Abizi. You got Abizi baiting for Simp, Simp baiting for Abizi, both of them baiting for Priesta.
hmm
Like, it's crazy what they can do. They just need that person in the very back picking off those easy kills.
sure. Yeah, I think we saw a little bit of what I was saying though is like Major Maniac did not step up to the Ravens and they kind of took advantage of it, but at the end of the day, FaZe is just a well-rounded enough team where other people picked up the slack and
Yeah, for sure.
ended up being a 3-1. So let's move on to the where are we at? Florida and Optic Gaming. This go ahead.
If you did not watch this map, go on you or this match, go on YouTube and watch it. All of it.
Yeah?
I had people at work getting hype about it.
I actually
Bright
did
and
not
early
watch
at
this.
11 a.m. this morning. Or not this morning. When was it?
This was last night.
Oh, yeah. So I worked from 3 to 11 last night. And this was me and one of the security guards were just getting so hype over it. It was a great game.
Dude, look at those scores. That's ridiculous. I mean, Optic won pretty convincingly on the hard point,
Yeah,
but
on the Ramaza hard point.
6-5, they won the domination by a tie, kind of, right?
Uh, let me read this since you didn't read it.
Okay, no. You
Since
take
you
over,
didn't
man.
watch it.
Yeah, go for it.
First map, Ramaza hard point.
Yeah.
Optic slaughtered. Pristini went 12 and 29. And for a team that, again, feeds off of one player and Florida feeds off of Pristini, they're not going to do well if he's going 12 and 29.
No.
And kind of contradicting what I said earlier, JCap somehow pulled out his Call of Duty Ghosts and went 28 and 14.
JCap went huge. Good for him, man.
I'm like, hold on, JCap is in the kill feed.
Yeah.
28 and 14.
That's
That
cool.
was
That's cool to see.
yeah.
And that
not-
that hard point game was pretty quick too. So it's like
It
when I look at
was.
that 28's not a huge number. We've seen 40 kill games, but those are games that last a lot longer because
Exactly, a lot
the score's
closer matches.
Yeah, so
And that's another thing. We haven't seen Ramaza played that much in the league, and or like a lot of teams are saying that it's the worst map.
that's really
So-
interesting for me to hear because like I have not heard. Whoa, sorry. I have not heard that, but I was wondering why we haven't seen Ramaza at all. And it's like, I mean, we've seen a couple. I think Dallas picks Ramaza quite a bit, but it was very. I was wondering why that wasn't there. Do you know why they think that's the worst map? Not to derail your
I don't
conversation.
know. I've just been watching a lot of tens, and they just talk or they just hate on it.
That's weird. All right, continue.
I have Florida came back in the Arclaw of S&D. I don't remember the map count, but I remember that it was a very good game. So, like I said, go back and watch it.
Sure.
Havoc was 11 and 7 in the Arclaw of S&D, and Frosty was 11 and 5. So that's
Jeez.
22 and 12 between the two of them. That is a really good stat line for an AR and a sub.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Pristini just needs to be more consistent from game to game. He has very bad games, he has mediocre games, and he has really good games. I feel like if he could stay in that mediocre to good range, Florida will be a very big team to handle.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
So
kind of noticed that too, but that again plays off of what we said earlier. Like, yeah, it would be nice to see Pristini more consistent, but I feel like if he was consistently beaming, that the Mutineers would kind of just rally behind him more and not get better as individuals. Whereas I think that Havoc and Frosty are both incredibly good players. Like, I definitely think they need to realize, like, oh, I'm not the driving force on this team. I need to get better. Like, I love Havoc as a player. He was great on Gen G last year. I was a big Gen G fan last year, but I definitely think they all really need to step it up and be a little bit more consistent.
Like I said, they can be a phenomenal team.
Right.
It'll just be hard for them to definitely get into the swing of things since this game is completely different than Black Ops 4.
Right.
Now the biggest one that had me sweating, I had no clue what was going on, was the Petrograd S&D. So it was kind of close.
Petrograd domination.
Oh, domination. Yes. Yep. Kind of close throughout the first half, second half, and still kind of close until like the last 30 seconds. The last 30 seconds, everything was neutral. No one was getting points. And then it was like a trip cap for one side, a trip cap for another. And then it got down to the final tick as Florida's neutralizing B. And something happened where the scoreboard ended up saying Florida Mutineers 146, Optic 145. And so Benson, the caster, is like screaming because Optic was ahead at that point. Absolutely screaming. He's like, oh my God, Florida took it back. And the other caster, I forget who it was, is like, taps him on the shoulder. Benson turns around and it says draw. So the game said that it was a draw, but the scoreboard said Florida 146, 145. So everyone was just like, what's going on? So for the next 20 minutes, we had no clue what was happening.
I was going to say, did they have to take some time in between that match to figure out what the heck happened?
They did. And the casters were saying, well, it's between replaying the map or giving it to Florida. Because obviously the scoreboard says 146 to 145.
Could they not just do the math on like the last, because it's every 5 seconds that like score goes up. So could they not just do the math and see who has what flags and figure it out that way?
That's what the game did. And it bumped up Florida, or so they were both at 144.
I see.
And Florida at the like literally 0.2 seconds capped B.
I see.
Yeah, so everyone was just freaking out. They ended up giving the game to Florida because obviously the scoreboard said 146 to 145.
Huh.
Now, if you're Optic, you're down 2, or you're down
2.
Yeah. No,
1,
it's
2.
tied 1-1.
Oh, meaning like during the match? Okay.
Yeah, it's tied 1-1. That's a demoralizer. You're screwed.
Yeah.
But in the Hackney Yard, they actually came out and were like, "Hey, let's push this to a map 11 or map 5."
I know what you're saying.
And so we could take this back. Very close hard point up until the last rotation. Florida got one wave of kills and ended up getting it on like P4.
Gotcha.
But please just go watch that series. I'll probably rewatch it, bro.
I will. Yeah, that's definitely weird. Do you know what would happen if they actually did draw? Because it's definitely possible in domination.
So they said the 2 options were 1, give it to Florida, or 2, replay the whole match.
I mean, just in general. So if a regular match just ended in a draw, how would that work?
replay probably.
That would suck.
That would
That
really
would suck. Oh my god.
because imagine you came back on a big comeback and got a draw and then have to replay.
Huh.
Yeah, that would not be fun.
Yeah, that would suck. You would think they would have like a tiebreaker kind of way, was it capture the flag?
Yeah, CTF.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. Well, yeah, I'll have to go back and watch that map. It seems like it was a pretty
For
cool
sure.
one. All right, let's keep it rolling.
At that point, Optic was knocked out.
See ya. So now Optic and Toronto are now knocked out. Minnesota against Paris. This was a close game. Was this
really
today, this morning?
Yep.
I watched this one in the shower. Prop my phone up on the right next to my shampoo and watched this one in the shower.
You're a monster.
Very close. Very close game. Again, I'm gonna say the right name this time. Kismet, not Waskin. Kismet vastly underperformed. I mean, it was simple as that, where they were just waiting for him to pop off and he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You wrote down a stat. Minnesota had 141 kills against Paris having 98 kills in this
in the
hard
point.
What a way to start it off. I mean, that's a smack in the face.
A big message. Silly ended up going 28-19 with a minute 40 in Hill, and God RX went 28-17.
Yep. And like I said, Kismet went 12-34.
And that's just crazy. He can't be doing that.
And I'm pretty sure he had less than 10 kills for most of the game. I mean, I feel like he got a couple kills right there at the end and bumped him up to 12, but oh my. Like if you if you subbed me in on the Paris Legion, I would expect myself to at least get 12 kills. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing. It gets better on the St. Petro S&D. Luca carried them to that win. He went 13-6. Kismet went 2-7. He got 2 kills. 2 kills in 9 rounds.
Oh, no. Yeah, like, he vastly underperformed. Dude.
Alex on Minnesota also went 2-7. So,
yeah, Luca's pretty good. I mean, he has his moments where it's like he could be a star player. I don't necessarily think he's inconsistent. I just think that sometimes he definitely does kind of flip the switch to give that extra 10% to be a really, really decent player. Minnesota stomps Paris again in St. Petro Dom, so it looks like just Minnesota was better, like outslaying them from what it looks like just in the
exactly.
Respawns.
And like I said, again, it was Kismet going 14-27. Like I don't know what happened with him this weekend.
Yeah,
but he's just dropping numbers like that, and for a hype person like he is. He's like not going to be saying anything. He's getting mad, which is going to like show for the rest of the team, and they're not going to do well either.
And so going into the second hard point, knowing that you're getting outslayed, Paris knew that they had to outsmart Rocker, and that's exactly what happened, dude. This was kind of crazy. Yeah. I mean, it was really back and forth, but in our notes, we just wrote down that Paris was out-rotating, winning gunfights on the rotation, and then it came down to a very, very close game where Rocker were bringing it back, and then they weren't paying attention, and Dens rotated into, I think it was P2 there at the end.
By. Yeah,
and just laid prone, and then got the last couple seconds.
Like 30 seconds left in P1, and Dens hit the north side of the map all the way around and just laid there at P2.
Yeah. Because they only needed a couple points to win, and Rocker were on a hot streak of bringing this back, and Dens had to make the play and just outsmarted Rocker. And then they moved into the search and destroy, and they're like, "No worries, we got this." Minnesota absolutely smacked Asim.
No, Asim smacked Paris.
Asim went 11-4. Dens went 1-6 on this search and destroy. It's not in this game. Oh no, it is in this game. I wrote down Asim have like one of the best movements in the game. Like he
Yeah.
moves around the map. I wrote this down before the Phase game, before I started seeing like Simp and Abizi, but
Yeah.
I think that Asim is up there. Like he has the potential to be so good at this game just because he's so far ahead skill wise and he can move his character around the map so much better than people. I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
that was a big factor in Black Ops 4 last year, where like at the beginning of the year just was pretty much like gun skill, but by the end of the year with like slide canceling and everything, people figured out that movement is 50% of the battle in Call of Duty, and Asim just moves around the map so quickly, and he's able to like get kills and then slither away in between a couple other people and keep his life. Like he's
Yeah.
really pretty decent at this game. So
Ooh.
yep, it was a pretty close match to start off the day on Sunday, but Paris, as Mark would say,
I love that.
it's so annoying.
Dude.
All right, and then the first big kind of upset for the weekend, I would say, is this Royal Ravens game against the Mutineers. This is where we
Yup.
first saw like, wait a second, are the Mutineers gonna like go all the way? Like
Are they gonna do
yeah,
something?
they're doing pretty decent. I don't necessarily know what happened with Royal Ravens. Dylan played like trash. I did write that down where he vastly underperformed. And then I also wrote down that Florida kind of understood that like how to push against Royal Ravens, and it looks like Royal Ravens were like kind of taken off guard, especially on this hard point where it's like we lost 250 to 150. I mean, that's a pretty big beatdown. So they ended up playing scared the rest of the whole season, I think, or
Yeah, for
the
sure.
match rather.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Pristini ended up showing up finally in this series. He went on his 13 streak in the St. Petro hard point.
it was
Ended
sick.
up going 38 and 26. Like I said, that team backpacks on how well or at least this weekend backpacked on how well he was doing.
Mm-hmm. And then the S&D, Frosty went 0-7.
Yeah.
Which is a big oof. And then Pristini went 9-6, and they still lost. They still only won one round after going 9-6. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. One thing I didn't understand was Frosty ended up being a really good sniper in Black Ops 4.
Mhm.
And I understand this is a completely different game in Black Ops 4, but if you have someone that's sniping, they're probably going to be sniping for their career. Pristini ended up taking the sniper and the Arklov S&D, and like he didn't do too bad. He went 9-6, but like they still lost. I feel like they could have done a lot better if he used an M4
Mm-hmm.
and had Frosty snipe.
Yeah, you definitely think that, oh, I'm the designated sniper for this team. So it was a little bit weird to see that. On the flip side, we had a double sniper set up at one point for the Royal Ravens, so that was kind of cool to see.
With Dylan sniping, I'm like,
trying to change
nah,
it up.
he needs, like, I understand Arklov is a very big map, and you probably only run one MP5. But I feel like that one MP5 for Royal Ravens needs to be Dylan. That kid is a god. And yeah, he played like trash this whole series, but still, like, don't pull out the sniper, bro. Give that to Rated, maybe.
Yep.
He's an AR. That's the most like a sniper. Dylan is a fast guy. He likes to get up in their face. You can't do that with a sniper in this game.
No. But Mutineers ended up closing it out. London Royal Ravens. Which is funny because we picked our top 4 for this weekend on the last podcast, and we both said that Royal Ravens were going to be tied for 3rd or 4th. So we were wrong there. Let's move on to this next match, which is going to be Faze against the Rocker? No.
Yes.
Faze against Rocker?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. So going back on my previous point where it's like if Optic can take even one map off of Faze, that is, a big confidence boost for these other teams that have to go up against Faze just to see that they're not dominating everybody with ease. And this game, man, it could have very easily been Rocker in the finals.
And think about that. Atlanta would have been
out. Yeah, they would have been third or fourth or tied for third and fourth. Like that's insane to me. The Rocker came out and they kind of understood that the Atlanta Faze was going to be playing pretty aggressively. So they kind of just slowed it down. And the big thing for this map or this match is Minnesota is way better at range. Like I said, Major Maniac was vastly underperforming this entire event. So it's like we knew GodRx was going to clutch up and pick people from afar. Like Simp.
That was my thing. I wanted to see how Simp and Celium's sniper compares to that of GodRx.
Yeah, the snipers would be cool to see, but I really think it came down to like in the respawns too. I mean, if Minnesota Rocker are better at range, like don't try and rush into these gunfights. Wait and see where they push and try and pick them off from a distance. I mean, Simp and Abizi are incredible submachine guns, and they do hit shots at range, but at that point, it's like if you can run more M4s and just pick them off from range, like definitely do that. And they did. It was very cool to see how Minnesota.
In this hard point, I want to highlight GodRx's ability to stay calm because, like I said, he's a M4 sniper guy. And when you have the tiny tears of Simp and Abizi sliding all around the map with I almost said SOG, with the MP5, GodRx was staying composed and getting those kills with an M4.
And I think it comes down to him not being like lost in the chaos there. It's really easy to lose track of where Pristini and Abizi and Simp are on the map, but it's his ability to stay calm, like you said, and just be like, oh, he's here. The next possible play is he could push from here, and he already is pre-aiming it and gets the kill. So I think that's a really good point that he definitely stays calm and collected. He can kind of survey the map and see where they're pushing from and direct his teammates there and pick them off himself. So
go
ahead.
What's up? I was gonna say on the S&D, that's where I was switching to. Minnesota won 6-2 against against Atlanta Faze.
Yeah, not even close.
6-2. Minnesota was doing a great job of getting first bloods or getting those immediate trades from the first bloods. They did not go down a man for a long time.
It literally did not look like a regular Atlanta Faze. It looked like it's kind of the same comparison between like Chicago 2 weekends ago and Chicago this week. It looked like a different team entirely. And it was cool because Asim was running around the map in search and destroy, kind of like how you would see Simp or Abizi play that map, and they were still getting outgunned by like
exactly. Minnesota definitely slowed Faze down and was like, hey, we're gonna play our game. And that really showed in that search and destroy. Everyone on Minnesota outslayed every player on Faze in that search and destroy as well.
Say that one more time because it's a dope stat.
Everyone on Minnesota, every single player have more kills than everyone on Faze.
That's just a cool stat. If you're Minnesota Rocker, you got to look at that and be like, let's go. Like every single one of us did better than that whole team. Like that's incredible.
But then they got knocked off their high horse.
Well, listen, I think this could have been a pretty easy 3-0. I think that Minnesota kind of got a little bit hyped and they were playing a little bit more aggressive than Faze in the search and destroy, and it was working well for them, obviously. But I think they took it too far. I mean, the reason they won this hard point is because they slowed Faze down and they allowed them to pick them apart from range. But at the beginning of this domination match, I was like, Rocker are using their 2-win streak to their advantage. They're hyped. They're playing a lot more aggressively. And I'm like, and it's working for them. And then FaZe just turned it around. They're like, oh, if you're going to come at us, we're going to come at you too, dude. Like,
yeah.
And then FaZe just absolutely fed off of that kind of aggression from the Rocker. And then absolutely took control of the domination.
Yeah, it was
So I
crazy.
was like, why didn't Rocker respond by doing exactly what they did the first map? Like, yo, guys, chill. Like, give up a couple points. We don't need to push into these like super aggressively. Let's just play for picks and then slowly work our way up the map. I think they would have won it.
Yeah, definitely. If not on this Dom, then on the second hard point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. I think after that domination and how quickly Phased flipped the switch, I bet you it kind of scared the Rocker back into their shell. And then they were like, oh crap, now we don't know what to do. They should have
Yeah,
just focused on the fact that they won the first two maps pretty convincingly and then tried to close it out in the respawns. Because if you're Rocker, you do not want this to go to a game 5.
yeah.
Looking for a reverse sweep at their home, stadium. So
Well, see, and that's where I made a note of this later on, but good time to bring it up right now is especially in this match, you could tell Atlanta has those times where they're not good. They
right.
have those open spots. And if you're a good team and you can figure out when that is
Yeah.
and you could counter on that, you're going to win. Like Atlanta are the gods and the gods can bleed.
Yeah.
And
I think
definitely.
I think especially teams that feed off of getting hyped over a win could take Atlanta down in those scenarios. Because I
Yeah.
think that if you let's pick a different team, let's just say Huntsman, because why not? But if the Huntsman, like last weekend, after they won a match, they were getting hyped and everything. If they were put in this position where they won 2 maps, they would be on their feet and like getting super hyped. I feel like they would have rode that hype wave out a little bit better, and then
For sure.
kind of exploited that weakness in Phase a little bit better.
Yeah, Faze is either I think they're hit or miss. Definitely more hit than miss. But if you can take advantage of them not doing well, you're gonna beat them.
But let's just not overlook the fact that this was almost Minnesota Rocker in the finals and possibly a Minnesota Rocker victory in Atlanta with all of these huge teams there. That's ridiculous to me. I was so ready for them to win.
Even crazier, the finals would have been Minnesota and Florida.
And Florida Mutineers. That's obnoxiously insane to me. I already had a video title ready. I was going to say like, wait, ... Minnesota Rocker won? Because I feel like if you didn't watch these matches this weekend, that's what you would say to yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I had a video title and everything. I wanted Rocker to win this so bad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have too. I mean, it genuinely could have gone either way.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, Minnesota Rocker. We did both say that Minnesota Rocker was going to be tied for 3rd and 4th this weekend. That was one of our
You were
predictions.
just
from
getting
last
that
week.
from me, but it's good.
Nope.
Copying me.
Nope. But before we move on, actually, no, never mind. Let's keep moving on.
Let's go.
I have a comment here in a second.
The twin battle.
Chicago Huntsman, the Sobfest 2020.
Oh my god, bro! If I were playing against you, I would. And I turned on you, bro. Middle of the game, I would go over there and just drop kick you out of your seat.
I just
Just
straight,
immediately.
just straight up, just run over and kick me out of my seat. No, I mean, yeah, it was interesting to see the twins face off. And even that, I mean, Arcides and Gunless and Prestini have all teamed together. They were on E United together too. So
Yeah.
he was facing off against a lot of like former players and everything. So Chicago Huntsman, man. What happened?
It just wasn't their weekend. Like I said, they definitely did not expect Florida, Minnesota, or Toronto to be their biggest competitors. They were practicing for Atlanta ever since they won London. They weren't thinking about the other teams.
Yeah.
And these other teams were like, hey, we got to get past Chicago first. So that's who we're going to practice for.
Right. And I think kind of, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but going back to our previous point of if we like the Huntsmen because each one of them are so confident in their individual ability to clutch up and not relying on one person to clutch up. I don't think that, or I thought it was really weird that this hard point went the way it did. Florida was very good at holding a lot of their hills, and the Huntsmen were just losing their 1v1s against them, and they couldn't break hills. That's why it was so close. This could have gone to Florida very easily. This hardpoint game could
For
have.
sure. And I think the only thing that held them back from that again was Pristini going 25 and 42.
Yeah.
And Envoy, of course, went 41 and 35. But
Envoy clutched. Holy cow.
if you look at it, almost every map that Florida won this past or like this weekend, Pristini was doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And every map that they lost, he wasn't doing well. So he's definitely a pivotable player on that roster.
And I mean, he's good. I think he has the talent to be kind of that, chart leading man. So, this hard point was the beginning of the end for the Huntsmen. Even though they won it just looked very bad. There was a couple times where Mutineers slipped by them to secure spawns. They were so good at securing spawns in both of these hard points and in domination.
Havoc.
Really.
It was Havoc that was so good at securing those spawns.
And usually it's Envoy, but Envoy was too busy getting all of the kills for the Huntsman anyway that he couldn't focus on being that sneaky kind of player. So, I mean, yeah, I hope this isn't a consistent theme for Huntsman where it's if some people are slacking where they're usually pretty decent, then the other person will have to kind of fill in the slack. I don't think that's a good formula clearly for the Huntsman to follow. So
it's not.
The search and destroy was pretty straightforward, kind of back and forth. Formal went 10 and 6. Gunless went 10 and 8. Gunless was pretty decent.
One thing I do have to say about that is, unlike former Optic rosters, so we know that the old Optic kind of transitioned to Huntsman, so I'm gonna kind of compare them. But unlike the former Optic rosters, the Huntsmen do a good job of grouping together in S&D. I was getting tired of watching Optic the past couple years, one person go in and challenge two people. You're not going to win.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But the Chicago Huntsmen, completely different team. They're doing it completely different. And I feel like they're really doing well in Search and Destroy in that aspect.
Like I said, I think they each feed off of how good each of them are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm on the Huntsman, I'm getting hyped up knowing that if I'm with my team, we're not going to lose this gunfight. Why are you dropping frames? You look like a potato right now.
Do I?
Yeah, a little bit. I wish I could full screen you. But it's I feel much more confident, therefore I play confident knowing that my team is going to clutch up. But yeah, I mean, I think they do better as playing as a unit, but they just need to feel confident that their other teammates are going to do what they came there to do. So
yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to the St. Peter Griffin domination.
I laughed so hard. So Mark and I have a Google Doc where we're just typing all this stuff, and St. Petrograd, he just types in St. Peter Griffin, and I laughed for a solid 10 minutes. That's so funny.
Oh my God.
The St. Peter Griffin domination is Florida's comeback here. They just outplayed Huntsman specifically in the second half, right? Because the first half was pretty close.
Yeah. Well, see, like I was saying about how they played it the last time, they would hold two flags, home flag and B, and then just sit mid.
Yeah.
You're going to win that if you're going to be sitting there mid and maybe have one person in the back watching your home flag.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did, and they ended up winning. There's no two ways about it.
Plus, we've said before that Mutineers are very good at playing corners and kind of letting the other team do the work for them. And the Huntsmen were doing that as well as, what did we say before, Royal Ravens. but
Yeah.
the Huntsmen were ready to face them in a traditional gunfight, not ready to be picked off in a corner. So in St. Peter Griffin, there's a lot of corners.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then the hard point, I think they just got outslayed here.
Yeah, on the Hackney hard point, everyone on the Huntsman went negative and everyone on Florida went positive.
That's
You're not going to win that map if you go everyone negative.
That's
Simple as
ridiculous.
that.
And another thing that you wrote down that I remember is Florida gets a ton of 4 or 5-man wipes. I mean, they were so good
Like
at either breaking hills or getting a 5-man wipe on a rotation so that they could secure spawns. They played spawns so well on all of these maps.
they did for sure.
So it was just a Gunson, and then from there they won the S&D.
Huntsman, we'll see you fudging later.
They shouldn't have won a round, but Frosty clutches up
Yeah, through
the
a
smoke.
that
Yeah.
was meant to knock him out, but
Yeah. And they were not ready for Pristini, who dropped nine kills.
and 6.
Yeah.
He played out of his mind
Yeah.
getting those like first bloods. He was a pivotal, like I said, pivotal person in match.
Right. So, sorry to say it, Chicago Huntsman.
Chicago Huntsman.
Yeah. Before we move on, I'm going to reconnect your thing here. Hey, you look much better now. No, now you don't. No, now you don't. You still look like a potato.
What's going on?
I don't know. Probably just your internet. All right, so
Like you got no camera.
no, it's all good. Let's talk about this final match. So, one of the big things from this weekend, I think, is I like how this tournament setup is for each of these weekends. I like the fact that there isn't all of the teams every single weekend, because I think it gives a lot of these, what we think are lower tier teams, the chance to make it all the way to the finals and possibly win these tournaments. I think that the Minnesota Rocker and Florida Mutineers have by far proven themselves to be a much higher skill team than what I thought they were this tournament. And even though Atlanta Faze did end up 3-0ing Florida Mutineers, like, they have definitely proved themselves, and I look at them very differently coming out of this tournament. So they should be very proud of their
For sure.
overall kind of performance. So going into this match, I kind of expected Faze to 3-0 them. I wanted Mutineers to kind of prove me wrong. It was close at times. The Search and Destroy, I felt like there were times where both teams threw away rounds. There were times where it was like when the Mutineers would win, it would be like a 6 people are still up, or when Faze would win, it would still have like their whole team up. What it came down to is a lot of these like clutch moments, and there was a few where it's like I felt like Mutineers should have won a couple more rounds than they should have.
Yeah, I mean, Priesta, or you said S&D, right?
I mean, we can start wherever.
Oh, we can start with the S&D second round or second map. Priesta went 15-8. He was hitting the flank and no one could stop him on it. Simp went 11-6, and Abizi had 4 first bloods. Like, with those numbers in a Search and Destroy game, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Florida did have some, like, it wasn't all bad for them though. Like, it was a 6-4, but I think Faze's strategy of just pushing up a little bit past mid and sitting, so getting in front of those bomb sites or right up next to them, and making Florida push and take those one-on-one gunfights. I feel like that picked Florida apart the most.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we wrote down, I don't know, it's somewhere in the notes, is that Florida did a very good job of trying to counter a lot of what FaZe was doing. Like they adapted their gameplay in game very well. I think the
Yeah.
problem with them is they didn't continue to execute on that. Like if they knew in the search and destroy that one of them was going to be flanking every single time, or one of them was just going to run as fast as they could right in the middle of the map. There was a couple rounds where it's like, yeah, it happened. They get beamed, but then they would have two people ready for him to push. And then the next round they would have one person again. Like, why wouldn't you keep doing the same strat of like trying to adapt to FaZe's play style? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
even in the domination was very close until right there at the end. Florida or FaZe took an early lead, and then Florida kind of adapted to what FaZe were doing and doing well, and kind of brought the score back to about even. And
Yeah.
then they just stopped doing it. I mean, I wish they would have.
And whether that being Florida kind of giving way or FaZe kind of flexing their muscles, you could kind of argue either way.
It might be a little bit of both, but
I do have a couple stats I want to bring up real quick in the Peter Griffin hardpoint.
okay.
Um, Simp was 29 and 17. Major Maniac was 15 and 9. Abizi was 23 and 17. Presto was 23 and 15.
Just a sick stat line. I mean, that one
That's
was a
disgusting.
stomp. Yeah.
Pristini again did not have a good map. Went 18 and 28.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just hard for Florida to try to keep in the slaying department with Atlanta.
Right. No, I really wanted Florida to take one map just to see the Azir hardpoint. I really, really wanted to see that map.
Yeah.
Just to see if Atlanta is ready to mow them over, or if Florida has, as we saw in the Huntsman game, I mean, they were ready to play that map really well and, rotate early and get all those like crucial kills. So I really wanted to see that map, but
Yeah.
we
Oh
did
well.
not, we did not get to.
Atlanta with the 3-0.
But again,
Florida.
I definitely think for the Florida Mutineers, mission accomplished. Very much so.
Mhm.
I don't think they were one that I didn't hear very much about at all leading up to the launch weekend. Launch weekend, we didn't get to see them play a whole lot, just 2 matches, and I think they lost both of them on launch weekend. But they were a team that no one really knew about, and now people are going to talk about them. So, oh no, they
Yeah.
won close against the Surge, and then they lost to the LA Gorillas. So, again, I think mission accomplished for them.
Mission accomplished for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, especially Minnesota Rocker. There was a big question mark around them. They did a lot better than people thought they were going to in launch weekend, and they didn't know whether or not to accredit that to the fact that it was a home team match or not. So yeah, Rocker came out swinging, and they did very well again this weekend. So
Definitely glad to see that. Season's going to be interesting if stuff like this keeps happening.
oh my goodness,
We're going to have LA Gorillas and a challenger team, COD champs.
Yeah, pretty. It's funny.
That's what it's going to be like.
I do wish there was more like mid-season tournaments. I wish they did like 4 full team tournaments.
Yeah. Kind of like the opening weekend.
Kind of. I mean, I get it that it's hard, that you want to have at least one event in every city, but I don't see why. I mean, like London has 2 tournaments. Why not take one of those away and put another like actual full everybody's there kind of style tournament? I do miss it, but we'll have to wait and see, because I think COD Champs is going to take a lot of people off guard. I foresee this year's COD Champs to be very much like just like teams not ready to play that many matches back to back.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be
stamina's definitely going to be tested.
Yeah. 3 days versus 2 days, so very cool.
I don't know, but that's all we have for the tournament this past weekend or this weekend.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any major points or anything?
No, I really. I do have one question.
Yeah.
Not just out of the finals match, but who was your most highlighted player of the weekend?
Oh yeah, highlight player of the weekend. So they gave the MVP to Celium
Sal.
on Faze. I think he deserved it. He played very well against a lot of these teams early on. I don't know if he necessarily was the star player in these like final matches. I don't know. I feel like it's gotta be a BZ.
Beezy?
I think I'm gonna pick a BZ.
Okay.
I feel like he was. It was weird in their like interview or commercial that they did for the Tiny Terrors. I don't know if you've seen that,
Yeah.
but Abizi says like Simp is the more like methodical sub, and I'm the more like run at them kind of sub. And I was
Yeah.
like, is that true? Like, I don't know if I agree with that. I thought Simp was a more like run in your face
Aggressive,
kind of
yeah.
sub, and Abizi was the more methodical one. I think I genuinely saw like both of those in Abizi this weekend, where he was very
Yeah.
methodical. The way that he would move around the map, it was a very calculated decision to play that aggressive on those kinds of rounds against these teams. He put up pretty consistent numbers all the way through. I think I'm going to go Abizi.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Bo?
So, I'm between two. My first one, and this is I'm actually repeating myself now. Would be God RX.
I knew you were going to, dude.
I love that guy.
We know you said God RX so much, dude. I think it's,
Oh, bro, I have three.
I agree. If I were to pick two others, it would have been God RX and it would have been probably Pristini, because Pristini was the one that kind of drove.
Those were going to be my two. Like both of their abilities to stay calm. I feel like God RX had a better ability to stay calm. I felt like Pristini definitely got a little overexcited, but he was still making the right decisions and right kills in most of his maps. Yeah, those would be. I can't pick between the two of them. Following up close to them though would also be Methods. I'm glad he's starting to make a name for himself.
You crack me up. You're like, I'm becoming a big Toronto Ultra fan, bro. They have lost like everything they've played.
I feel like here's the thing. Once they get over that hump, bro, I feel like there's a lot. Every team can be really good. Any team can pull an upset on any other team.
I think I agree with that statement, but at the same time, I also think that it's like if I were to pick one team to be the worst in the league right now, I'd pick Ultra.
Okay.
Ultra, maybe Optic.
Ultra, I'm going to say it now, is not going to pull the upset of running a whole tournament, going undefeated and winning. That's not going to happen, no. But they can pull an upset in one match.
Oh, I think so too, but we'll see. I mean, we're only the third event in, so we've got a lot of we've got a lot of Call of Duty watch. Teams are still kind of up in the air on who's the best. I do think Atlanta Faze is the best team in COD right now. I wanted, dude. I
wanted to see that Chicago and Atlanta.
That's so mind-blowing that for 2 weeks, that's all people were talking about. That is literally the topic. The title of every single video was who's going to win, Optic or Huntsman or Faze. And it's like the fact that we didn't get that just kind of blows my mind. I think it's cool.
And
I like
that's cool for Florida.
That's very cool.
Screw
Florida.
you guys.
Absolutely.
It's us.
Absolutely. So I like that. I think that Optic will take that loss with a grain of salt. Kind of, sorry. They don't play next weekend, but they do play the weekend in Dallas. This will be a big match to see who comes out on top here, because then Dallas is also in Chicago when we're going on in April.
That's going to be crazy.
So I'm very excited. And Faze is going to be there?
In Chicago?
Bro, you're going to...
and Seattle?
What's that? Is it a defibrillator? What's the clear? You're gonna have to bring one of those for me, because my heart is going to stop multiple times at the Chicago event. I'm gonna be the biggest fanboy there.
Let us know if you're going.
Yeah, let us know if you're going. We'd love to talk to you if you watch the podcast, and yeah, watch some Call of Duty together, man. That's what we're all here to do. So, once again, if you're not subbed to the YouTube channel, and you have to be followed on Twitch to be entered into this giveaway.
I just put the link to the YouTube video in the Twitch chat right now.
Yep. It should be in most of the descriptions below. This is also our first podcast that was multi-streamed. So if you're watching on Mixer, that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
That's pretty neat. So
I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Mixer.
I don't know anything about Mixer. I just made an account. We're on there too.
She said I made an account and started streaming.
Yeah. So yeah, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We will be posting a top 5 plays of the weekend. I'm hoping to get that done Monday night, so it'll be posted on Tuesday morning. And then if you like the podcast, make sure to check out our other podcasts we do. Last week was probably my favorite podcast that we've done.
Last week was fun.
It was really good. Yeah, we had a lot of good points. So definitely go check that out. And am I missing anything?
I think that's it.
With your potato quality camera, let's just take a look at this. Why does it look so bad?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
It says I have good connection.
Yeah, we got to get you hooked up with a new camera or something. Somebody hit us with a really big dono so we could buy we should start a replace Mark's camera fund in like YouTube or something.
All right, that's just mean. How about replace my Wi-Fi? How about an actual Wi-Fi place gets Wi-Fi out here, or internet?
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be streaming this week. Make sure to turn on your notifications so that you get a notification when we go live.
Tuesday and Thursday.
Running up some 2v2 tournaments. Well, bad news bears. I can't do Tuesday and Thursday because I work. I play at both the Pacers games on Tuesday and Thursday. Sorry. Love you. Love you. Don't be mad. Just straight up rage and the stream goes offline. All right, let's end it. We'll see you guys next week, where we will be talking about the Battle for Los Angeles. That'll be a cool little podcast. So, all right, we'll see you guys later.
See ya.
Peace.